Elena Vasquez sat very still in her chair. The room around her was bigger than most houses back on Earth. Everything was made of smooth white stone that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols covered the walls, showing the history. Of the 3 alien races that ruled the galaxy, she was the only human in the room. 23 aliens sat around a curved table that looked like a half moon. They all stared at her with eyes that were too big, too small, or too many. Some had scales, others had fur. A few looked like they were made of living metal. Elena wore her best black suit. She had practiced her smile in the mirror for hours before this meeting. Now she used that smile as she looked at each alien face. Inside, her heart was beating fast, but her hands did not shake. Commander Thexka stood up from his seat. He was 7 feet tall and covered in dark red scales. His teeth were sharp like a shark's. When he moved, Elena could hear the metal armor under his clothes make small clicking sounds. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. "We have thought about your people's request to join our galaxy community." Elena nodded. "Thank you, Commander. Humanity is very interested in working with your great nations." The commander's mouth opened in what might have been a smile. Elena could see rows of sharp teeth. "Yes, we believe humans could be very useful to us." 3 other aliens sat near the commander. They all wore the same red and black uniforms. The Krolix Empire liked to show their military power. They had conquered more worlds than any other race in the galaxy. To Elena's left sat the Zephyrian Consortium representatives. They looked like tall, thin birds with blue feathers and golden beaks. Their clothes were covered in jewels and expensive metals. They counted money while other races counted lives. On her right were the Veil Collective members. They appeared almost human, but their skin was gray and their eyes were completely black. They wore simple white robes and carried data tablets. They wrote the laws that let the other races do whatever they wanted. "Your species is very young," said one of the Zephyrians. Her voice sounded like music, but Elena knew the words would not be beautiful. "Only 200 years in space, very young indeed." "Yes," agreed a Veil Collective member. He did not look up from his tablet. "Young species need guidance, protection, help to avoid making dangerous mistakes." Elena kept smiling. She had studied these races for 5 years. She knew exactly what they meant by guidance and protection. Commander Thexka walked around the table. His claws clicked on the stone floor with each step. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador. Many threats exist for species that do not know how to defend themselves." "Humanity appreciates your concern," Elena said. Her voice was calm and polite. "We have always believed in working together with others." Good, the commander said. He stopped behind her chair. Elena could feel his breath on her neck. It smelled like metal and old blood. "Then you will understand our offer." Elena turned in her chair to look at him. "I'm listening." "The Krolix Empire will take your species under our protection. You will become part of our great family. In return, you will give us your faster-than-light travel technology. You will also let us guide your military development." "That sounds very generous," Elena said. She was still smiling, but her eyes were cold. "Oh, but there is more," said the Zephyrian. "Your people are good workers. We have many jobs for humans in our factories and mines, very safe jobs. Your people will have food and shelter for many generations." Elena knew what those jobs really were. She had seen the reports about the other 17 species that had accepted similar generous offers. None of them were free anymore. "And we will help you write proper laws," added the Veil Collective member. "Laws that will keep your people safe and happy. Laws that will prevent problems." Elena nodded slowly. "This is indeed a very comprehensive offer. May I ask what happens if humanity chooses a different path?" The room became very quiet. Commander Thexka leaned down until his face was close to Elena's ear. "There are no other paths, little human," he whispered. "The galaxy has rules. Those who follow the rules live well. Those who do not follow the rules." He made a sound like laughter, but it was not funny. "Well, let us say they do not remain a problem for very long." Elena felt something cold touch her neck. She looked down and saw one of the commander's claws resting against her skin. It was sharp enough to cut through steel. "How many species have chosen different paths, Commander?" Elena asked. 17, he said with pride. "Some fought us. Some tried to hide. Some even tried to make alliances with each other." He pressed the claw a little harder against her neck. "None of them succeeded." Elena looked around the room. All the aliens were watching her with hungry eyes. They had done this before. They knew exactly how this meeting would end. "I see," Elena said. She reached up and gently pushed the commander's claw away from her neck. "This is certainly a lot to consider. Would it be possible to have a short break? I would like to contact my government before giving you an answer." Commander Thexka stepped back. He looked disappointed that she had not shown more fear. "Of course," he said. "Take all the time you need. We are very patient. But do not take too long, Ambassador. Opportunities like this do not last forever." Elena stood up from her chair. She was much smaller than any of the aliens in the room, but she did not look afraid. "Thank you for your patience," she said. "I should have an answer for you very soon." As she walked toward the door, Elena heard the aliens talking behind her in their own languages. She understood every word they said. They were already planning how to divide up human territory and decide which humans would make the best slaves. Elena's smile never changed, but her eyes grew colder. These aliens thought they were dealing with just another young, weak species. They had no idea what humans were really capable of when someone threatened their freedom. She reached the door and turned back to face the room. "One more question, if I may," she said. "Of those 17 species you mentioned, how many of them knew they were being threatened?" Commander Thexka's scales changed from dark red to bright red. "What do you mean?" "I mean, did you tell them directly that you would destroy them if they refused your offer? Or did you let them figure it out on their own?" The commander's eyes became very narrow. "What difference does that make?" Elena's smile became wider, but it was not a friendly smile anymore. "It makes all the difference in the world, Commander," she said. "Because those 17 species never had the chance to prepare for what you were going to do to them. But you just told me exactly what you plan to do to humanity." She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. "Thank you for being so honest. I will make sure to include that information in my report." The door closed behind her with a soft sound. Inside the room, the alien sat in silence for a long moment. "Did she just threaten us?" asked one of the Zephyrians. Commander Thexka's claws scraped against the stone table. "No," he said slowly. "I think we just threatened her." Elena walked down the long hallway toward her quarters. Her hands were steady now. Her heart was no longer beating fast. She had work to do. Elena walked quickly to her room. The hallway was empty and quiet. Her footsteps made soft sounds on the smooth floor. She passed many doors but saw no other people. The aliens had given her quarters far away from everyone else. They wanted to make sure she felt alone. Her room was large but cold. The walls were the same glowing white stone as the meeting room. There was a bed, a desk, and a chair. Everything looked expensive but felt empty. Like a beautiful prison cell, Elena sat down at the desk and opened her portable computer. She typed in a long password that used numbers, letters, and symbols from 3 different Earth languages. The screen showed a loading message for 30 seconds. Then Dr. Sarah Chun's face appeared. Sarah looked tired. Her black hair was messy, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She was sitting in her office back on Earth. Elena could see stacks of papers and data tablets behind her. "Elena," Sarah said, "how did the meeting go?" "About as well as we expected," Elena replied. "They made their offer. Let me guess. Protection, guidance, and generous work opportunities for all humans? You forgot the part where they want our FTL technology and complete control of our military." Sarah rubbed her eyes. "Same script as always. Did they mention the other species?" 17. Commander Vexka seemed very proud of that number. 17 that we know about, Sarah said. Our intelligence suggests there might be more. Species that disappeared so completely that we can't even find records of them. Elena felt cold. How many more? Maybe 30, maybe 50. The galaxy's a big place, Elena. Lots of room to hide bodies. Sarah reached for something off camera. When her hands came back, she was holding a thick data tablet. The screen was covered with charts, numbers, and star maps. "I've been working on the Darwin Protocol files all night," Sarah said. "The information our people gathered over the past 5 years. Elena, what we found is worse than we thought." "Tell me." Sarah looked at her tablet. "Let's start with the Krolix Empire. They don't just conquer other species. They study them first. They send traders and diplomats to learn about their technology, their culture, their military strength. Then they find weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? Everything. Political divisions they can exploit. Resources the species depends on that the Krolix can cut off. Important leaders they can assassinate or bribe. They map out entire civilizations like we might map out a building before tearing it down." Elena wrote notes on her own tablet. "How long does this process usually take?" "Between 2 and 5 years. The Krolix are very patient when they're planning a conquest." "And the Zephyrians?" Sarah's face became angry. "The Zephyrians are worse in some ways. They don't just want to conquer other species. They want to profit from them. They have detailed business plans for what to do with each conquered population." Sarah touched her tablet screen. New information appeared. Elena could see pictures of alien factories, mines, and what looked like prisons. "They sort conquered species by physical abilities," Sarah continued. "Strong species go to the mines. Smart species go to the research facilities. Species that are good with their hands make products in factories. The Zephyrians have been doing this for over 300 years. They have millions of slaves working for them." "What about the ones who can't work?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "The Zephyrians are very efficient, Elena. They don't waste resources on people who can't make them money." Elena understood. She felt sick but kept writing notes. "The Veil Collective," she said. "What's their role in all this?" "They make it legal," Sarah said. "Every conquest, every enslavement, every genocide gets written up as a proper legal document. The Veil Collective creates laws that say everything the Krolix and Zephyrians do is justified and necessary." "How is that possible?" "They control the galactic legal system. When a species is conquered, the Veil Collective writes reports saying they were a threat to galactic peace. When populations are enslaved, they call it protective custody or rehabilitation programs. When species are wiped out completely, the official records say they died from natural disasters or plagues." Elena stopped writing. "Sarah, are you telling me that these 3 races have been systematically murdering entire civilizations for centuries, and they have a legal system that covers it up?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. And Elena, there's something else. Something that makes this even worse." Elena waited. "They're not the only ones doing this. Our intelligence suggests there are other alliances in different parts of the galaxy doing the same thing. This isn't just 3 evil races working together. This is how the entire galaxy operates. The strong take everything from the weak, and everyone pretends it's legal and normal." Elena stood up from her chair and walked to the window. Outside she could see stars and the darkness of space. Somewhere out there were the home worlds of the three races that wanted to enslave humanity. Somewhere else were the scattered remains of 50 other species that had trusted the wrong people. "Sarah," she said, "in your professional opinion as Director of Xenological Studies, what would happen if humanity accepted their offer?" "We would cease to exist as a free species within 10 years. Our technology would be stolen. Our people would be scattered across the galaxy as slave labor. Our children would grow up never knowing what freedom feels like. And if we refuse their offer, they'll try to destroy us." "But Elena, here's the thing they don't know. We've been preparing for this moment since the day we first detected their signals 5 years ago." Elena turned back to the screen. "What do you mean?" Sarah smiled for the first time during their conversation. It was not a nice smile. "Elena, do you remember what you studied before you became a diplomat? Military history and strategy. And what did every great military strategist in human history say about fighting a superior enemy?" Elena thought for a moment. "Know your enemy better than they know themselves." "Exactly. And for 5 years, while these aliens thought they were studying humanity, we've been studying them. Every human who met an alien was gathering intelligence. Every trade mission included reconnaissance specialists. Every cultural exchange was actually a spy operation." Sarah touched her tablet again. The screen showed a map of the galaxy with hundreds of red dots scattered across it. "Elena, we know where every major Kralix military base is located. We know the shipping routes the Zephyrians use to move their slave workers. We know which planets contain the Veil Collective's data centers where they keep all their legal records." Elena stared at the map. "How is that possible?" "Because humans are very good at pretending to be something they're not. For 5 years, we've had spies living among all three races. Some of our people learned to speak their languages perfectly. Others had surgery to look more like them. A few even married aliens and had children to maintain their cover. They never suspected. Why would they? As far as they knew, humans were just another primitive species that was eager to learn from their advanced galactic neighbors. They never imagined that we were mapping their weaknesses while they were studying ours." Elena sat back down. Her mind was racing. "Sarah, what you're describing sounds like we've been planning for war since first contact." "Not planning for war, Elena. Planning for survival. There's a difference." Sarah leaned closer to her camera. "Elena, I need you to understand something. Every human who volunteered for the deep cover missions knew they might never come home. Every spy who infiltrated alien society knew they were risking their life. Every intelligence officer who spent years learning alien psychology knew that failure meant the end of human civilization. Why didn't anyone tell me about this before? Because you needed to be genuinely surprised by their offer. If you had known about our preparations, you might have acted differently. They might have suspected something." Elena realized that her own government had been using her just as much as the aliens had been using their previous victims. So what happens now? Sarah's smile became wider and more dangerous. "Now, Ambassador Vasquez, you go back to that meeting room and show them what happens when someone threatens the human race." The screen went dark. Elena sat alone in her room, staring at her reflection in the black computer screen. Outside her window, the stars looked different now. They no longer seemed like distant lights in the darkness. They looked like targets. Elena walked back to the meeting room. Her steps were slow and steady. She carried a small data tablet in her left hand. In her right hand, she held a simple black device about the size of a coin. The aliens would think it was just a translator or recording device. They would be wrong. The door opened with a soft sound. All 23 aliens looked at her as she entered. They had been talking among themselves in their own languages. Now the room became quiet. Elena walked to her chair but did not sit down. She stood behind it and looked at each alien face. Her smile was gone. Her eyes were cold and hard. "Thank you for waiting," she said. "I have discussed your generous offer with my government." Commander Vexka leaned forward in his chair. His red scales seemed brighter now. "And what did your leaders decide, little human?" "They asked me to share some information with you before giving our final answer." Elena placed her tablet on the table. She touched the screen and numbers began to appear. The aliens looked confused. "These are coordinates," Elena said. "Kepler 442b, Kepler 438c, and Wolf 359d. Do any of you recognize these locations?" "The Krolix." Commander's eyes became narrow. Two other Krolix officers whispered to each other in their harsh language. "Those are random star systems," said one of the Zephyrians. "What do they have to do with anything?" Elena touched her tablet again. More numbers appeared. Kepler 442b contains the Krolix Empire's 3rd Fleet staging ground. 47 battleships, 200 smaller vessels, and approximately 50,000 soldiers. Wolf 359d houses your main weapons research facility, the one where you develop planet-killing missiles. The room became very quiet. Commander Vexka stood up slowly. "How do you know about those locations?" he demanded. Elena ignored his question. She touched her tablet again. Kepler-438c is more interesting. That's where the Krolix Empire keeps prisoners from the species you've conquered. About 2 million beings from 12 different races. They work in your mining operations 16 hours per day. The mortality rate is 60% per year. "Those are lies," the commander said. But his voice was not as confident as before. Elena looked at the Zephyrian representatives. "Would you like to hear about your operations?" The bird-like aliens shifted nervously in their chairs. Their blue feathers were ruffling. "Zeta Reticuli System," Elena said. "Your main slave processing center. You bring conquered populations there and sort them by species, age, and physical capabilities. The strong ones go to mining worlds. The smart ones go to research facilities. The attractive ones go to entertainment planets." One of the Zephyrians made a choking sound. "That information is classified at the highest levels. No outsider could possibly know about it." Elena smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "NGC 2547 Nebula. You have 17 hidden factories there, using slave labor to build luxury goods for the galactic market. The working conditions are so bad that most slaves die within 3 years. But that's okay, because you always have new conquered species to replace them." Elena turned to the Veil Collective members. They were all staring at their data tablets, trying to look calm. "And you," she said, "the keepers of galactic law. Would you like me to discuss your operations?" The gray-skinned alien said nothing. "Proxima. Centauri B, your main data storage facility. Every illegal action taken by the Krolix and Zephyrians gets documented there and then covered up with false legal papers. You have records going back 400 years. Genocide, slavery, torture, biological warfare. All of it carefully filed and labeled as legal and necessary." Elena touched her tablet one more time. A long list of names appeared. Andromedans, extinct. The Veil Collective's official report says they died from a plague. The real records show they were killed with poison gas because they refused to surrender their territory. She scrolled down the list. Cetaceans of Tau Ceti, extinct. Official cause, natural disaster. Real cause, orbital bombardment after they destroyed 3 Krolix ships. The list kept going. Crystalline entities of the Vega system, extinct. Official cause, solar radiation. Real cause, their entire planet was strip mined for rare metals. Elena looked up from her tablet. "Should I continue?" "I have records of 43 species that were completely wiped out, and detailed files on the current." Status of surviving enslaved populations from 72 other species. Commander Thexka's claws were extended. He was breathing heavily. "This is impossible," he said. "No one has access to that information. Those locations are secret. Those files are protected." "You're right," Elena said. "No one should have access to that information, but humanity does." She picked up the small black device from the table. "For 5 years, while you thought you were studying us, we were studying you. Every human trader who visited your worlds was actually a spy. Every cultural exchange student was gathering intelligence. Every diplomatic meeting was a reconnaissance mission." Elena pressed a button on the device. Suddenly, every alien's personal communicator began beeping. The aliens looked at their devices. Their faces showed confusion, then fear, then horror. On every screen was a video feed. Live footage from their home worlds. The Kroleks could see human agents standing outside their military headquarters. The Zephyrians could see humans near their slave processing centers. The Veil Collective could see humans positioned outside their government buildings. "What is this?" whispered one of the Zephyrians. "This is what happens when you threaten a species that has spent its entire history fighting wars," Elena said. "We don't just prepare for battles. We prepare for wars that haven't started yet." She walked around the table slowly. The aliens watched her like prey animals watching a predator. "Every major facility you have is being watched right now. Every important government building has human agents nearby. Every military base is under surveillance. We know where your leaders live. We know where your families are. We know where you keep your most valuable resources." Elena stopped in front of Commander Thexka. "You said that 17 species tried to resist you and failed. Do you know why they failed?" The commander said nothing. "They failed because they didn't know you were coming. They failed because they fought you honestly. They failed because they tried to play by your rules." Elena's voice became very quiet. "Humans don't play by anyone's rules except our own. And our most important rule is very simple. If you threaten us, we threaten you back, but we don't make empty threats." She pressed another button on her device. New images appeared on the aliens' communicators. Pictures of their families, their friends, their most important leaders. All of them being watched by human agents. Every person you care about is now a potential target. Every place you consider safe is now compromised. Every secret you thought you were keeping is now in our files. Elena walked back to her chair and sat down. "So let me make humanity's counteroffer very clear. You will leave human space immediately. You will never threaten humanity again. You will release every slave from every conquered species and allow them to return to their home worlds." The alien stared at her in shock. "And if we refuse?" Commander Thexka asked. Elena's smile returned. This time it was genuinely frightening. "Then you'll find out why humans are the only species on Earth that hunts everything else, including each other." The aliens sat in complete silence. Elena could hear the sound of their breathing. Some breathed fast like frightened animals. Others held their breath like they were trying to disappear. Commander Thexka was the first to speak. His voice was different now, lower and more careful. "You cannot be serious," he said. "Your species has only been in space for 200 years. We have been conquering worlds for over 1,000 years." Elena leaned back in her chair. She looked relaxed, like she was having a friendly conversation. "Commander, may I tell you a story about my species?" "What kind of story?" "A story about how humans learned to hunt." Elena stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars looked cold and distant. 65 million years ago, a giant rock fell from space and hit Earth. It killed almost everything alive. The big, strong creatures all died. Only the small, smart ones survived. She turned back to face the aliens. But surviving wasn't enough. The small creatures had to learn how to live in a world full of bigger, stronger predators. So they learned to hunt in groups. They learned to use tools. They learned to think ahead and plan. Elena walked back to the table. Over millions of years, one small species got very good at hunting. They learned to track animals for days without stopping. They learned to work together so well that they could kill creatures 10 times their size. They learned to think like their prey, to predict where their prey would go. Commander Thexka's scales were changing color again. What does this have to do with anything? That small species was humans, Commander. We didn't become the top predator on Earth because we were the biggest or the strongest. We became the top predator because we never stopped hunting. Ever. Elena sat down and looked directly at the commander. Other animals hunt when they're hungry. Humans hunt because it's what we do, it's who we are. When we ran out of animals to hunt, we started hunting each other. We've been fighting wars for our entire history. Not for food or territory, but because we're good at it. One of the Zephyrians made a nervous sound. Surely you don't mean that. Your species enjoys warfare? Elena smiled. Let me tell you about human history. In the past 5,000 years, there have been exactly 268 years when humans somewhere on Earth were not fighting a war. That's less than 6% of our recorded history. The aliens looked at each other with growing concern. We fought wars with sticks and stones. Then we fought wars with metal weapons. Then we invented explosives and fought wars with those. We learned to fly and fought wars in the air. We learned to travel underwater and fought wars in the oceans. Elena's voice became more intense. We split the atom and built weapons that could destroy entire cities. We reached space and immediately started planning how to fight wars there too. Every single advance in human technology has been used to make better weapons. She stood up again and began walking around the table. But the most important thing about human warfare isn't our weapons. It's how we think. When humans fight, we don't just try to defeat our enemies. We try to understand them completely. We learn their weaknesses, their fears, their hopes. We get inside their minds. Elena stopped behind the Veil Collective members. We call it psychological warfare. We learned that the best way to defeat an enemy is to make them defeat themselves. We learned that information is more powerful than any weapon. She continued walking. When humans discovered that other species existed in the galaxy, do you know what our first reaction was? Wonder, suggested one of the Zephyrians hopefully. Fear, Elena said. Fear that you might be better hunters than we are. So we did what humans always do when we encounter a new predator. We started studying you to find out how to kill you. Commander. Thexka stood up quickly. You admit that humans are planning to attack us? Elena stopped walking and looked at him. Commander, humans don't attack. Attacking implies that you start a fight. We don't start fights. We finish them. She walked back to her chair. For 5 years, every human who met an alien had one job: learn everything possible about alien psychology, technology, and tactics. We studied how you think, how you make decisions, how you react under pressure. Elena sat down and folded her hands on the table. Do you want to know what we learned about your species, Commander? The commander said nothing, but Elena could see. He was listening. Kraliks are pack hunters. You are very good at working together against weaker enemies. But when you face something stronger than yourselves, you panic. Your entire military strategy depends on having superior firepower. When that advantage is gone, Kralik soldiers become confused and make mistakes. The commander's breathing became faster. Zephyrians are even easier to understand. Everything you do is about profit and loss. You never fight unless you're sure you'll win more than you lose. The moment a conflict becomes too expensive, you surrender or run away. The bird-like aliens shifted nervously in their seats. And the Veil Collective, Elena said. looking at the gray-skinned aliens. "You're the most interesting of all. You've convinced yourselves that you're peaceful scholars. But you're actually the most evil of the three races because you provide the justification for everything the others do." One of the Veil Collective members looked up from his tablet. "We maintain order in the galaxy," he said quietly. "You maintain an order that benefits strong species and destroys weak ones," Elena replied. "You've created a legal system that makes genocide look like charity work." Elena picked up her black device again. "But here's what none of you understand about humans. We've been the weak species before. For most of our history, we were the ones being hunted by bigger, stronger creatures. We know what it feels like to be prey." She pressed a button on the device. New images appeared on the aliens' communicators. "These are the survivors from the species you've destroyed. The Andromedans didn't all die from that plague. Some of them escaped and have been hiding in the outer galaxy for 50 years. The cetaceans of Tau Ceti built underground cities before you bombed their planet. They're still alive." The aliens stared at their screens in shock. "For 5 years, while we were studying you, we were also finding the survivors of your previous conquests. We've been helping them rebuild, giving them new technology, teaching them human military tactics." Elena's smile became sharp and dangerous. "You see, humans have another trait that makes us excellent hunters. We hold grudges. When someone hurts us or our friends, we don't forget. We don't forgive. We plan revenge." She stood up one final time. "Right. Now there are fleets of ships crewed by the survivors of 43 extinct species heading toward your home worlds. They're using human weapons and human strategies. And they're very, very angry." Commander Thexka's voice was barely a whisper. "How? Many ships?" Elena's smile became wider. "Enough." Commander Thexka tried to stand taller, but his legs were shaking. His red scales had turned pale pink. Sweat was running down his face even though the room was cold. "You're bluffing," he said. "No young species would risk everything on such a dangerous plan." Elena laughed. It was a soft sound, but it made all the aliens flinch. "Commander, let me explain something about human psychology. When a human is cornered and has no way to escape, they don't surrender. They become more dangerous." She walked to the center of the room. "You gave humanity 2 choices today. Become your slaves or be destroyed. But humans always find a third choice." "What third choice?" asked one of the Zephyrians. Her voice was high and frightened. "We destroy you first." Elena pressed another button on her device. The screens on the aliens' communicators changed again. Now they showed star maps with hundreds of red dots moving toward their home systems. "Those red dots are ships," Elena explained. "Each dot represents a fleet of vessels crewed by species you thought you had killed. They've been traveling toward your worlds for the past 6 months." Commander Thexka grabbed his communicator and stared at the screen. "This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected such a large fleet movement." "Your sensors did detect them," Elena said. "But your computers were told to ignore the readings. You see, for the past 2 years, humans have been quietly updating your software systems. Every time you downloaded new navigation charts or communication protocols, you also downloaded our modifications." The Veil Collective members were frantically typing on their tablets. "We're not reading any system intrusions," one of them said. "Of course not," Elena replied. "The intrusions are in the systems you're using to check for intrusions. Every piece of technology in this room is now under human control." To prove her point, Elena pressed her device again. All the lights in the room went out for 5 seconds, then came back on. "Your ships, your weapons, your defense systems, your communication networks, all of them have human modifications that you can't detect. We've been inside your computer systems longer than you've been planning to enslave us." One of the Zephyrians made a choking sound. "But why? Why go to such lengths? Why not just negotiate with us? Elena looked at the bird-like alien with disgust. Negotiate? You came here today planning to enslave my entire species. You told me about 43 other species you've completely destroyed. You have millions of slaves working in your mines and factories. And you ask why we didn't try to negotiate. Elena's voice became very cold. Let me tell you what humans learned from studying Earth's history. Evil doesn't negotiate. Evil doesn't compromise. Evil only understands force. She walked over to Commander Thexka and looked up at his tall frame. You think humans are young and weak because we've only been in space for 200 years. But Commander, we've been preparing for war since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered, what else might be out there? Elena stepped back and addressed all the aliens. Every human child learns about the possibility of hostile alien contact. Every human military officer studies scenarios for interstellar warfare. Every human scientist works on projects that could be used for both exploration and war. She returned to her chair and sat down. When we detected your first signals 5 years ago, we didn't celebrate. We mobilized. Every human government, every human corporation, every human organization started working on one project: how to survive contact with a hostile galactic civilization. Elena opened her tablet and showed them a new image. It was a picture of Earth, but the planet looked different. There were new structures visible from space. While you were planning how to divide up human territory, we were turning our entire planet into a fortress. Every major city now has underground bunkers that can survive orbital bombardment. Every factory can switch from making civilian goods to making weapons within 24 hours. She scrolled to another image. We built new shipyards in hidden locations throughout our solar system. We trained every human pilot in combat maneuvers. We taught every human engineer how to build explosives. Commander Thexka was breathing very heavily now. But that's not the worst part, Elena continued. The worst part is what we did to your previous victims. The screen showed new images. Ships that looked like combinations of human and alien technology. We didn't just find the survivors of your genocides. We gave them human technology and human weapons. We taught them human tactics. We showed them how to think like humans. Elena stood up one last time. Do you know what 43 species that have nothing left to lose can do when they're armed with human weapons and human strategy? None of the aliens answered. They can end civilizations. Elena pressed a final button on her device. The aliens' communicators all showed the same message: unconditional surrender or total war. Here are humanity's terms, Elena said. All 3 of your empires will immediately release every slave from every conquered species. You will provide ships and supplies to help them return to their home worlds or establish new colonies. She walked around the table one more time. You will turn over all political and military leaders responsible for genocide and enslavement to a tribunal of survivor species. You will pay reparations to every species you have harmed. Elena stopped in front of the window and looked out at the stars. Your military forces will be reduced to defensive levels only. Human observers will monitor your activities to ensure compliance. Any attempt to rebuild your conquest capabilities will result in immediate military action. She turned back to face the room. And finally, humanity will establish permanent bases in your territories to ensure that this kind of evil never happens again. Commander Thexka found his voice. And if we refuse these terms? Elena smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was worse than that. It was the smile of someone who was absolutely certain of victory. Then in 72 hours, the combined fleets of 46 species will begin systematic bombardment of every military installation, government facility, and industrial center in your empires. Your planets will not be destroyed, but your ability to harm anyone ever again will be. Elena walked to the door. You have 6 hours to make your decision. I suggest you choose wisely." As she reached the door, she turned back one final time. "Oh, and Commander, thank you for being so honest about your intentions. It made this much easier." The door closed behind her. Alina walked down the hallway toward her room. Behind her, she could hear the aliens arguing in their various languages. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. A few were already trying to contact their homeworlds. It didn't matter what they decided. The fleets were already in position. The computer systems were already compromised. The survivors were already armed and ready for war. Elena had told the truth about one thing. Humans always found a third choice, but she hadn't told them the most important truth of all. This wasn't humanity's first plan. This was their backup plan. The real plan was much worse.